so we can get through these and then get to the fun topic, which is a Bioshock movie being made over at Netflix. So that's going to be fun. So that being said, let's have you introduce yourself, then I'll introduce myself, and then we'll go over the topics, and then we'll dive into the cast. Go ahead.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, to the last BS Busters of February 2022. I'm Jory Lemonstar, and before we get to something fun, we're gonna have to take some aspirin.
Yeah, this is Mr. Red Fox, owner proprietor BS Busters. Thank you for joining us for another cast. This is the last cast of February, and we're talking. We're talking when gamers get messed over by developers, publishers, console manufacturers. Basically, there's some industry practices that feel a little scummy. And that's the primary focus of our cast. We're going to be talking, or this cast for today in February. We're talking about such topics as the overarching topic is when gamers get screwed over by the hobby they follow. We're covering the logical fallacy of why digital games are the same price as physical ones, comfort branding and why it is not a desired position. We will discuss if the industry can withstand another console manufacturer. And this is serious. We're not going to be joking at people like the Ouya and the Amico and the fucking myriad of other. We're creating a console and it comes in. It's just some bullshit.
Sadly, those are the things that are usually thought of when a new console is presented.
I mean, the only console manufacturer who brute forced their way into it and they were able to do it was Microsoft, and that's because they were willing to spend fuck tons of money to do it with the Xbox. And finally, we will discuss the merits of developers, and we've seen this the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. Like for the last decade, we've seen a lot of developers leaving AAA publishers and developers and going to start their smaller studios to make games that they want to make and not the mass marketed gobbledygook bullshit that we're getting from AAA publishers and developers.
Playtonic.
I mean, more than that. I mean, you're seeing a lot. Playtonic is the most because a lot of it is like rare developers, but more than that, you're just seeing a lot of new studios cropping up over the last 5 years of people. I mean, Yacht Club Games were a lot of former I want to say Activision. No, they weren't Activision. It was another developer, like AAA developer. It just you're seeing a lot of people leave and make games they want to make, and not the safe AAA budget. We can't take risks shit that AAA publishers and developers have been putting out. Our fun topic is going to be the news that Netflix is making a Bioshock movie. Bioshock the game, that is. A movie based on the Bioshock game. So, with that being said, let's dive into the first topic, which is gamers getting screwed over by the hobby that they follow, as evidenced by them charging just as much for a digital game as a physical game.
Oh boy, I'm gonna say this right now and say this. The only reason I think they are trying to up the price a little bit is to negate the middleman charge.
Yeah, I would agree with that, except
I said negate the middleman charge as in they think that the middleman takes $10 from the 60, so they'll raise it to 70.
Yeah, I would agree with that, except they're raising the price of everything, not just the if the physical games were $70 and then the digital games remain 60, I would say okay, that kind of makes sense. But that's not what's going on. What's going on is that they're raising they raise the price of everything. Like physical games should cost more than digital ones because physical games they have to pay for they have to
They
print.
have to pay for the places to buy them, the storage, if I remember right, display cases, if any.
Well,
and
that's all.
probably
That all
advertising.
includes shelf space. That's all shelf space. Okay, they have to pay for shelf space. They have to pay for the manufacturing costs of the actual product. So if it's Nintendo, it's the cartridges. If it's Sony and Microsoft, it's the discs. Okay, those discs probably cost like 5 cents to print like 10 of them, and maybe the cases cost another 5 cents to manufacture those. But still, I mean, let's say overall they're losing like $5 per game. Okay, they're still making a hefty sum of money. But the digital games, none of those costs are present. Like they don't have to buy a storefront. They don't have to print a disc. You're not getting a manual. Have you seen the digital manuals for some of these digital games? It's bullshit. It's a two
I was
it's a
about
two
to
page spread.
I was about to say, depends on what game, because at times you're even lucky to get one page.
Well, I was giving the benefit of that doubt of the 2 page spread, but essentially you get nothing. You get some, hey, this is the start button, this is the stop button, this is the select button, these are the buttons that do whatever. Okay, that's it. Fuck off. And you charging people $60 for this.
Yes, this is this is the reason why I feel like uh, and I'm likely in on this because I feel like some things are comfort food in a sense that some that having no manual in some of these things, as in a real physical manual or at least a manual that you can go outside of the game and read, having those gone is just sad at this point.
Well, it was just an excuse for them to cut costs and make more money. Which leads to my point. Like this is like the developers are like, well, it got to be too expensive. Bullshit. You wanted to make more money. It's the reason why digital games are the same price as physical games. Because, like I just said, there is no reason for digital games to be the same price as physical games. Zero. Because they don't cost as much money to make. It's the same game as physically and digitally with none of the overhead because you don't need shelf space. The only thing that's going on with a digital game is you need to set up a digital storefront for your games to be sold. But you can't call yourself a modern gaming console today if you don't have a digital storefront. That's a sunk cost. You have to have that regardless of what's going on. So these companies are just fucking over their consumer base. They're making people pay more than they have to because they can. That's all it is. There's no like, oh, well, we had to, it's so expensive. Bullshit.
I it's already a headache trying to work with physical media at times, but having it digital and be the same price, it it kind of makes me wonder where's the where's the quote unquote savings, because I see zero of that.
The only cool thing about the game is that you can the only good thing about physical media is that you can trade physical media. It has value. Like you can't trade uh, digital media except for very specific circumstances. Like if I think there's a online store called forgot the name of it. It's an online store. I got one of my games from there where you can trade in digital versions of games. But I mean, it's called IG. There is, I mean, that's rare. That is a rare
Very.
occurrence. That's very rare. And you're still not getting near the market value or any like. It's not like you have to do it through their methods. You can't actually just go. The day that you can trade digital goods to people, for some type of monetary value. Like you played a game. Let's say you bought Elden Ring 2, and like
Mhm.
10 years from now, you buy Elden Ring 2, and you're like, yeah, I played it, for about 2 or 3
We played it
hours.
for a few hours and it didn't groove with
You
me,
didn't
right?
like it, so you want to trade it. So you want to trade it in, and if there's a digital market for it, you might not get $60 or $70, whatever, however much games will be in a decade, but you get like maybe 50. We're not there yet. It'll be cool if we get there, but these companies don't want to do that because if there's a secondhand market for digital goods, these companies are going to be pissed because then they won't be able to charge you $50 for games. I mean, these huge amounts of money for a digital product. People will be like, well, yeah, I'll just wait till I can get a trade-in code for it, or a used code for it, and I'll just get the game used. And I can't blame people because why pay full price if you don't have to?
The only time I actually would say that would be a false is if the product quality is good.
Yeah, but all these companies' product quality is going down. All of them. Like even
Uh,
companies that used to have a higher quality standard are like not as high as they used to be. So you know,
your mileage may vary, but yeah.
it's not worth paying more for higher quality when you're not getting it. Like for example, I'm going to use Nintendo's example because for the longest time they had the
Mhm.
highest quality around. They aren't offering manuals in their games. They were one of the last ones to give it up. So what incentive do I have to pay $60 for a game if it's not coming with any type of, you know,
Instructions.
no types of benefits. It's literally there's no types of benefits coming with it.
Huh.
I mean, there's no incentive to pay a
Yeah.
huge. Now, to be fair, there are some games where it's like, yeah, I'll pay more. Like if I'm paying it to an indie because I know an indie doesn't have the type of resources to fall back on if a game is heavily reduced before they see sales. But if you're a AAA publisher or a console manufacturer and this is your first party game, I am not going to pay a huge amount of money just because if you're not offering something that's commensurate with what I'm paying. And that's just me. I know some people will disagree, and that's okay. But that's how I feel. You have any thoughts before we move on to the next topic?
Huh. Right now, right now. If anything, at least I could say one positive thing about it, and this is going to be weird coming out of me. At least be, at least they're being at least a little more worth it than the card game systems that's going on right now. Because so far I've been cheated out of good product at times when I try to work with card games.
Yeah, but card games have always been like this because it's always been a crapshoot of what you're going to get in a booster pack. Even though they give you those odds, well, you have a X and X chance of getting this. It's like, yeah, bullshit. Um, I
Uh,
don't believe
I was
you.
gonna I was gonna say that the odds of getting a rare or higher is accurate. Exact rare, exact numbers. That's why I say BS.
I don't believe any of it. That's why I don't play physical card games anymore. And I used to be a big Yu-Gi-Oh person. The only physical card game I've ever played where you got exactly what you paid for was the Star Wars the trading card games back in the day.
I
But
question that.
well, because Star Wars the trading card game didn't have booster packs. Like you would buy sets and those sets had exactly what they said they had. So like if you got a set that said this is a
Hmm.
original series, original trilogy Jedi pack, all you'd have in there were the hero cards. So you'd have like Luke, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, and then you'd have accessories to go with those characters in that pack. But that's a rarity. That's not the You know,
Hmm.
that's a rarity. That's the exception. That's not the rule. Also, why I think Star Wars the trading card game never really took off
Took off.
because they weren't selling those cards like that because they had a much fairer uh, card distribution system. You know, versus that
Eh,
lotto shit. You have a chance of getting this
huh.
that they do now, where it's like, oh, so if I buy 20 packs, I might get the card I want, maybe.
Huh. In that case, I really can't consider you play that you ever experienced card games.
No, I did. Like
Yeah,
I said, I used to be majorly into Yu-Gi-Oh, and then there reached a point where I got tired of uh,
yeah, I get.
keeping up with all those fucking cards
Yeah,
and having binders full. You know the
so
binders where you had like the plastic things where you could put like 9 on one side,
yeah,
nine, and
I
then
get
nine
you.
on
But
the other side. I was one of those
I
people.
was,
I got tired of it.
yeah. It's just that if anything, if you if you're saying that the fairest that you ever had was the was from Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, the Star Wars trading card game came out in 90. It came out shortly before Lucas re-released, did the silver edition of the original trilogy.
Huh.
Because it was one of those things that they released in order to get people hyped up on the silver editions. So, like, I already was kind of a Star Wars fiend, and they basically, I wanted to play the trading card game because at this point I was into the video games, I was into the comic books, I was into um,
Hmm.
the other stuff, and so they got me into it. And when they got me into it, I was like, yeah, I'll play the trading card game. And I mean, unlike a lot of other trading card games I had played at the time, like Pokemon, which had a similar issue with the fucking booster packs that might have one Pokemon you wanted and the other ones would be duplicates or shit you didn't want. Um, like Star Wars, like the Star Wars booster, like if you got the Star Wars like main deck set for the Empire
Hmm.
of the Rebellion, okay, you had a complete deck to play a complete game with with good hero cards on both sides, with ships and everything, like everything you needed to play a good game. You didn't feel like, man, I got a shitty version of Luke Skywalker, I got a shitty version of Darth Vader. Like you had good cards in both for both sides. um it was a much fairer distribution. I think they went all the way up to the original the prequel trilogy, but I didn't get the prequel trilogy because I just
Huh.
didn't like the design of those cards. But it was there.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, I get you. So if anything, I'm gonna say this right now. You probably paid a lot more than the usual prices for those cards.
I mean, not really. You just had to go to a specialty card store in order to get it, and the specialty card store in order to get the packs for Star Wars, like there was only like one card place that would sell it, and that was kind of the downside of the cards, is that like you could only go to one place, and good luck, you know, good luck, they didn't always have, like, you could order certain packs, like you could order once they started expanding it to like they did an expansion where they had like Knights of the Old Republic, so you get Knights of the Old Republic characters, like Bastila, Bendo Jolie, stuff like that, stuff from Shadows of the Empire, stuff like that. Like, I mean, they really did a lot of support for it, but you would get packs that had characters from those parts of the mythos and the lore, and some of them I didn't care about. Like, I would never really like Shadows of the Empire, the game. I thought Prince Shizor was a shitty version of the Emperor. So anyway, yeah. Yeah, I played trading card games. I just didn't like the predatory nature of them back in the day. Like the only one that I really went whole hog in, like I said, was Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah,
And
So,
I eventually sold all my Yu-Gi-Oh cards for like 900
huh,
bucks on eBay,
that
and that was a pretty decent
that's
little chunk of change.
yeah. Though, if anything, I'll just say this right now: the mechanics of the games usually are the ones that pull me in rather than repel me. And lately, all three have been doing that lately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just for me, I just got tired of the predatory nature of booster packs and like you try to build a deck because I played Yu-Gi-Oh competitively, not on a national level, but like local tourneys and stuff. And it just after a certain
Yeah,
point, like building certain types of decks and having people like trying to build like trying to get and like this didn't ever happen to me but people screwing like bringing in duplicate cards and um
yeah.
like not duplicate cards counterfeit cards and stuff like that. I was like I can't fuck this, I'm done.
It's
I'm done.
you're you got unlucky. I got I had the unluck feature to hit me when it went to a certain game style, which at the time that I quit Yu-Gi-Oh was pendulums.
No, it wasn't the gameplay features, like the actual gameplay features that made me
I know.
say
I'm
fuck
just
it.
saying
It
that.
was the people playing it. It was the bullshit
Yeah,
around it. It was people going in to trade cards. It's like, okay, I'm gonna. I have I have too many Yami Karibos. Yami Karibos are
uh-huh.
actually in like the original generation of Yu-Gi-Oh were great monster cards because like every time they were attacked or sent to the graveyard, unless you used like a special monster attack, as soon as they were flipped over, you could put another card in your hand, which is great if you have a deck where you have a certain combination you want to get to and you're like, okay, I've built a Yami Karibo heavy deck where I like have monsters that belong to that style, where I'm basically putting other cards in my hand. But unfortunately, uh, I
People have
have
been.
I have too many, so I want to trade some for another
Yeah,
card. And you do a trade, and someone gives you a fucking counterfeit card that you can't even really use in a sanctioned game because people can tell it's a counterfeit. Like shit like that, where people would do like or people would buy a card or they'd have a card auction and it would be like some ridiculously overpriced amount and there'd be collusion. Like it was the people who made it not fun, not the game itself. To me.
sadly, I can honestly agree with you there, especially since there's been killings over Yu-Gi-Oh cards
I mean,
going on to this day, no less.
I mean, I don't exactly, I don't remember that. I wouldn't doubt that it happened, considering that people have been shot over Jordans and jackets and chains and shit like that. And Yu-Gi-Oh
You
video game consoles, I would not be surprised that
um, let me let me pull a little bit of history up
wouldn't be a
for
card.
you. Yeah, let me pull up a little bit of history for you. Remember the card known as Exodia the Forbidden One?
Yeah.
Um, Back in the past, before it became more common to get it, there was a tournament that was held where the only card that there one of the booster packs that had this card was going to be sold, and Konami canceled the selling of that booster pack during that tournament. There was a beeping riot with two people going to the hospital, dozens getting arrested, and the players that were there couldn't make it to round freaking two and had to mail in their certificate of attending the event in order to get that booster at all.
Yeah. 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 Like I said, I'm not surprised. But moving on to the next topic, comfort branding. Now, for those of you who don't know, comfort branding um,
It's a term that
is
means think of it like going into your favorite chair and getting comfortable into it. Something like that's going on with video games in a sense.
well, I mean, it's not just video games. Like imagine people who basically take they enjoy. Let's say they enjoy. I'm going to use DC versus Marvel. People who like the Zack Snyder fan base. people who, like, if you criticize Zack Snyder's films, they take it as a personal affront. Um, like, they cannot countenance the idea that someone would not like Zack Snyder's movies. And if you criticize it, it's like you're talking about their mama or their dog or their wife or their kids. Comfort branding is where you have an emotional attachment to a brand or a certain creator, like people who have this love affair with Kojima,
Mm-hmm.
to the point where even legitimate criticism is seen as a personal attack. Like they like instead of like instead of being like I'm a Nintendo fan, but when Nintendo fucks up, I'm not gonna just give them a pass on it because I wouldn't give a pass to anyone else who did it. It's like if you say, "Hey, I'm a Nintendo fan, or I'm a Sony fan, or I'm a Sega fan, or I'm a Microsoft fan," but they fucked up here, and instead of you saying, "Hey, that was a fuck up, they need to do better," people who have a comfort brand relationship with it who will think that will act like you're attacking them when you mention these legit concerns. Um, that's basically what like comfort branding are people who who identify personally with a commercial brand to the point where when you criticize that brand, they take it as a personal attack. Because to them that brand is comfortable. It's they jibe with it. It's like a personal thing for them. Like someone having a teddy bear when they were a kid that made them feel comfortable. But we see this a lot in gaming. Like I mentioned earlier, we had the Kojima fanboys who anything Hideo Kojima did, you know,
Mm-hmm.
was good. These are the people who you you know, you mention, hey, these are the people who you say, hey, man, I mean, I think we can all agree that Death Stranding is terrible. How dare you? Like it was a personal affront that you said that Death Stranding is a piece of shit. Um, because how dare you say that something made by Hideo Kojima is not good? That type of comfort branding. So, do you have any examples of comfort branding in gaming where you're like, okay,
Huh.
this is too far?
This is probably gonna be the easiest one because even I know that we both get on their cases this much. The Cult of Kojima. Death Stranding.
Yeah, yeah. Where they were like, it's a good game, and I'm like, this is not a good game. This game is not good at all.
Yeah, as much as I. Though the only other one that I could actually think of would be the Bethesda games.
Uh, I mean, I don't think the Bethesda fans are like that. Mostly because every time Bethesda releases a new game, they fracture their fan base. Like fans of the original Elder Scrolls Arena got fractured with Daggerfall. The fans of Daggerfall got fractured with Morrowind. The fans of Morrowind got fractured with Oblivion. The fans of Oblivion got fractured with Skyrim. Like it's not one consistent group between each game. Same thing with Fallout. Like the fans of Fallout 3 might not necessarily like Fallout 4. Um, I'll tell you, the rabid fan of one of the most rabid fan bases of all time. Those old school Sony fanboys, the Sony ponies, if you will.
And I was trying to keep out of the out of the game console specific ones because if anything, it's easier to aim at the IP specific ones.
So console fans. I mean, you had the
Yeah.
Xbox strong people who were all on board with Xbox until the whole Xbox One. Then they were like, "Fuck this shit."
Oh yeah, and I
They
know
jumped
that
off board.
what's coming next.
They were like, "Oh, I'm done. I'm done. I
Yeah.
can't. I can't deal with it."
Hmm.
Um, you know, uh, I'm like the thing is that I mean I understand that people have an emotional response with certain game uh, developers or console manufacturers because you have like for a lot of people they remember waking up that Christmas morning or that birthday and getting their video game system or whatever, and so you have kind of an emotional attachment with it. But you also have to look at this as like this is a business. They're making a product, and you expect certain things from that product. Like if someone sold you a computer at a
At a certain
competitive
price.
price. If they sold you a laptop that was at a competitive price to other laptops and it was missing features that were in other laptops in that same price range, you would be like, "What the fuck are you selling me?" You wouldn't be like, "Well, as long as it plays as long as it has as long as it has the programs on it that I need to use." You'd be like, "No, I mean, this is $1,000 laptop. The other laptops in this family are between $899 to 1,100, and all of them have these features except the one I paid 1,000 for. What the fuck is wrong with this company?" So it just seems odd to me that some people just kind of like get very, and if you bring this up, they get angry. They're like, "Well, don't say that about my Sony console. The Vita was a good console." I'm like, "Was it?"
Oh God.
The
Oh
Vita
God.
sucked. I mean,
I
actually, no, I take that back. The Vita had a lot of good potential. It's just Sony supported that handheld for like a year and a half, 2 years, and they were like, "Fuck it, we're going all in on the PS4."
yeah. As much as I wonder how people say that s- that the Vita was good, I have to actually wonder about that.
Well, I mean, I can't laugh at the Vita because if you look at the Switch, everything that the Vita did, the Switch does better. Like the idea of the Switch is very much like a Vita. Like Nintendo's like, well, it's home console on the go. That was the Vita. A lot of those games were home console games on the go. You can hook up your Vita to your TV. You can hook up the Switch to your TV. A lot of the games that are on the Switch are from Vita developers. Like a lot of the games that have been ported over to the Switch, Vita games. Those developers just took that engine and ported it over to the Switch. Um, so like when people are like, "Yeah, the Switch," it's like the same people who claim that the Switch is so innovative and so amazing and the best console ever. I'm like, you do realize these are the same people who also shit on the Vita,
And I'm not ashamed of it.
and I'm like,
Hmm.
it's functionally the same thing, except the Switch is has a better battery life, and you get
Ah,
Nintendo's first party games on it, which is a major boon because
mhm.
Nintendo has actually been supporting the Switch. Whereas Sega said, I mean, it's not Sega, Sony,
Tony.
after 2 years, were like, "Fuck it, all in on the PlayStation 4, baby." I know someone at Sony is kicking themselves in their own ass saying, "Man, we could have had a Switch, but we fucked up." And I'm like, I'm not surprised. That's what you get for not supporting your device. You brought that on yourself. You know.
Yeah, I mean, as much. I mean, that's the thing that bugs me. I mean, if Sony at least tried to keep up with the handheld market with the Vita, then at least I could see the 3DS having competition.
Yeah, and competition is good. Like having viable competition is a good thing in gaming. And all the fucking
Yeah.
excuses that Sony made with the Vita, they were like, "Well, the reason it's not doing well is because of smartphones." Well, I mean, the Switch ain't having no problems. That's all I'm gonna
The
say.
3DS had no problems.
I,
And
I,
oh no, you're not. You're already saying. You're already thinking of what could have went wrong already.
No, no,
Seriously,
no. I'm not saying what could have went wrong, but here's what I'm gonna say. The DS sold
hmm,
150 million units. Okay, 150 million is huge. It's a huge number. Um, the 3DS only sold around 80, 85. Maybe, if we include like underhanded, maybe backroom marketing, like someone selling it, it fell off the back of the truck. Let's go 90 million. That's a huge drop in install base. Now, and this is anecdotal. This is just my okay, because I remember when I was much younger, like 20 years ago, I
hmm,
remember when you could see like 15 years ago, I remember you'd see little kids with DSs in their hands. Like all you just see kids in a shopping market, their parents shopping, and you see the kid in the cart with a DS in their hands. And then when the 3DS came out, you'd see kids with 3DSs in their hands. And then about 7, 8 years ago, you'd see less 3DSs, more smartphones and tablets. And now all you see in these kids' hands are smartphones and tablets. Like 5 years ago, all just smartphones and tablets. I very rarely, if ever, saw a 3DS or a DS. So I do think, in regards to, I do think that smartphones did have a hand in diminishing returns. But it didn't. That doesn't mean that it wasn't profitable, because the 3DS made a fuck ton. Because the 3DS, unlike the DS, because the DS, the only online functionality that the DS had was with certain games, and the DSi, which had like a mini store where you could buy like really small functional games, like apps almost. The 3DS did have a digital market where a lot of games were digital, so like that made a lot of money as well for the 3DS. But I do think that smartphones did have some effect, but Nintendo still made a fuck ton of money off the 3DS. So I'm not gonna say, but there was an effect. I'm not gonna be like Sony and say the reason our shit failed is because of smartphones. No, the reason your shit failed is because you didn't support it. Smartphones may have been a factor, but if you guys had supported it like Nintendo did with the 3DS and the Switch, you'd have a viable console. I mean, handheld, gaming device, whatever.
hmm.
If you, I mean, the only gaming device I've seen that Nintendo supported and it just didn't take off was the Wii U, and that was because Nintendo waited too long when they put it out.
Hmm.
They basically said we're going to give third parties a year and a half to come out with their games, and that shot Nintendo in the ass. They shouldn't have done that. They should have been aggressive getting strong first party games out like they did with the Switch. Now, in hindsight, a lot of those games were games that they were probably working on for the Wii U, and they pulled production for that and ported over to the Switch. Um, I grant that, but still, the end result is you were getting a huge library. You were getting strong games coming out almost every month in the first year of that of the system, which, I mean, that's what people want. I mean, you don't buy a console to play a whole bunch of shit you can play on other gaming devices, which was kind of like what hurt the Wii U in the beginning of its first year, because a lot of the games that hit the Wii U in its first year were like ports of shit that people already had. You know, I mean, I'm not gonna buy a new console to play shit I already have on other shit. How about you?
I could agree, but if there was at least a selection, then it would at least give me options of picking what to work with.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like, okay, if all you have is a Nintendo console, then having a console that has a lot of
Choices.
choices is a good thing. But we live in a world where, like, most people aren't just rocking one console. I mean, most people, even if they only have one video game, I'm using air quotes, video game console, they have a laptop or a computer that can do something. They can play simple or older games on no problem. So, like, most people aren't just, oh, I can only play games on this. They have other shit they can play. So, I mean, like, just for me as a gamer, like, I don't want to own a console where I wouldn't want to own a console where a lot of the shit that I could get on the console was shit that I already have, or shit that like there's nothing new or interesting coming to the system. Like, I don't want to play that. But to each his own. Everyone has their own personal tastes. Everyone has their own personal tastes in gaming. So I can't be like, I can't speak for everyone. But me, like, if someone said, "Hey, we're coming out with a console," and like 85% of the first year's library is going to be shit that you either already have or can get cheaper on other platforms, I'm not going to be really enticed to buy that console. I'll be like, I'm good. I'll wait. Which unfortunately a lot of people did. Now I know people are going to be like, "Well, why are you saying that, Mr. Red Fox?" I bought a Wii U. I bought a Wii U within the first, like not when it first came out in like November or
And
October.
they open in months,
I
basically.
I bought mine for Christmas, so I got mine within those first 3 months. So before someone says some shit to me about, "Oh, you didn't support the system," I fucking did. I still have my Wii U hooked up, but that's just me. Okay, that's my own personal um thing. That's how I feel about it. But enough with comfort branding. Speaking of consoles, what do you think? Now, we've had like, what people don't realize is that there was a time when the industry had far more than three consoles. We've stagnated down to three consoles, but there was a time when we had more than three consoles. Like in the late '80s, during the the console revolution, when Nintendo had to bring back console gaming in the West, we had the NES, the TurboGrafx 16, the Sega Master System, and the Sega Genesis. Plus whatever the fuck Atari called themselves trying to put out. So that's five consoles right there. And I'm not even including the PC, which was also a factor back then. I'm only looking at consoles. And then during the fourth gen, you had the TurboGrafx 16, the Sega Genesis, the Super Nintendo, the 3DO, the Atari, the Atari Jaguar. That's five consoles, man.
Yeah,
Five.
and as much as I will say that I'm alright, I'm okay with how many consoles we got. I actually am curious of how and another one would end up being, because in a sense I feel like we might be losing one sometime in the future because of checks coming home to bounce, and that would be Sony of all things.
I mean, I don't think Sony's gonna leave the building because the PlayStation brand is too fucking strong. And like, basically, in order for PlayStation to leave, they would have to have one generation where they just get decimated and never come back. I mean, never come back.
Red, I know that you're saying that, but the thing is that I'm thinking about the financials about it. That even with the Sony having at least a good run,
No,
they're on a thin line.
I understand what you're saying, but Sony would sooner sell the PlayStation brand and the brand would continue on under someone else's auspices than just shutter place. Like, I don't think you're going to see PlayStation leave the building anytime soon, because the brand is so strong, and there are people who live or die by that brand. Um, but I do think there is room. Like, if you had asked me 5 years ago, is there room for another console manufacturer, like a serious console manufacturer to come in? I would say no, but now I do think that there is room for another console manufacturer. Um,
I have I have a hope for it, but something tells me they'll be at the expense of another console.
I mean, another console manufacturer could come in. It's just it would have to be something with like they'd have to have a lot of capital to hit the ground running. They would have to have a good console that had a lot of modern amenities, so online support, inbuilt modem, a digital online storefront, a good online infrastructure, and most importantly, they'd have to have a strong first party lineup of games. And no, I'm not saying Sega, because Sega has, like, okay, if Sega was better run, I think if Sega was better run and had enough money, I think if they had someone with good vision, they could get back into the console game. The problem is that Sega is run horribly. And
Horribly is putting it kindly, Red Fox. Remember?
Sega is one of the most horribly, like, everyone who's a Sega fanboy who's like, yeah, Sega during the 16-bit Genesis, the fourth gen with the Sega Genesis was a fucking fluke. Okay,
I was
every
going to
other
say that I was going to say that if anything, Sega, as much as I like them, they have they probably have the most in-house fights that a console manufacturer could ever have.
every other console that Sega released was a critical or commercial failure. Okay, aside from the Genesis. And they drag,
Yeah.
and because basically what happened with the Genesis is that they put Bernie Stoller in charge. Not Bernie Stoller. Um, what's his name? Shit, I forgot the guy's name.
Uh-huh.
They put they put that guy Tom Kalinske. They put Tom Kalinske in charge, and they left him the fuck alone. And he basically built that brand by making it adversarial with the NES. And, like, you have to remember, the NES was made using technology that was old as fuck in 1979. Okay, that was the base technology of the NES. For what it was able to do for come out in '83 in Japan, it was amazing, but it was old. It was obsolete by the time it came out. Okay, actually, like 77, 70, 76 in Japan. Okay, um,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the Sega Genesis, just by virtue of it coming out later, it was coming out with shit that was like obsolete in '85. So it automatically was like gonna be head and shoulders above the NES. Obviously, like, no, you
No
know,
contest,
no
right?
contest. Yeah, it's like the difference between the Super Nintendo
Super Nintendo
and the Sega
and the
Genesis.
Sega
Yeah,
and the original Sega.
because the Sega Genesis was using technology from like 1985, 84, whereas the Super Nintendo was using technology from like 1990. Like 1990. So, I mean, if you're using technology that's 5 years more advanced than your competitor's shit, of course it's going to be able to do more shit.
Stronger.
You know,
Yeah, it's gonna have more. It's gonna have more to offer.
no shit. So, like, so the Sega Genesis comes out. It basically barns, like, it really, like, it barnstorms. It stomps all over the NES and takes. I think they took like 60% of the market share from Nintendo in America before the NES. Nintendo bided its time. It's like, that's okay. We got something for your ass. And then they came up with the Super Nintendo. And over the next 5, 6 years, they came back and kicked Sega's ass. Of course, it wasn't just Nintendo kicking Sega's ass, it was Sega kicking its own ass, because they released add-ons that no one fucking wanted and services that bombed, like the Sega
I was about
Channel
to,
and the
I was about to
32X
say
and the Sega CD.
some of the Sega CD at least one good item.
Final
Sonic
Fight,
CD or Final Fight.
that's it, just Final Fight. That's the only
Ouch.
that's the only good
Sonic, I
game
feel
on
sorry.
that.
I was gonna say Sonic, I feel sorry for you, but he just roasted you.
I mean, Sonic CD is good, but that game didn't need to be on CD.
It at worst, I could say it would be a 32X game.
I mean, no, I wouldn't even say that. Like, the problem the problem with the problem with the Sega Genesis, the problem with Sega is that like, when Tom Kalinske had control over Sega of America, they left him the fuck alone and he created a successful product. The people over in Japan got jealous about that, and they started putting they started like putting the screws to him, to the point where Tom Kalinske was like, "Fuck this." When they basically like Sonic the Hedgehog 2 wasn't even made by Sega of Japan. It was made by Sega of America, and they had a turnover of like 18 months. They made that game in 18 months. Whole bunch of cut content and shit. Same thing with Sonic 3. When Sonic 3 was being made, the people over in Japan were working on Sonic, like other projects and shit. So basically, like you had an adversarial relationship between two halves of the company, and they like really literally Sega killed the golden goose. They forced them to announce the Sega Saturn too soon. They forced them to make the Sega CD and the Sega 32X. Like Sega basically kept on being reactive instead of proactive and making their own shit. They killed IPs that could have been really big things, like Eternal Champions, which personally I think is a trash fucking 2D fighting game. But it's Sega's answer to to Mortal Kombat, and it's actually like there's a fan base for that game. And instead of them immediately saying, "Here's some more money, make Eternal Champions 2," they fucking slashed their budget and held back the release of Eternal Champions 2 to focus on Virtua Fighter for the Sega Genesis. That shitty Virtua Fighter that's just not even worth playing on the Sega Genesis.
I was about to say, Virtual Fighter for the Sega Genesis. That
Virtua
I
Fighter.
thought I thought that was I thought that was a Sega Saturn item.
No, it was a Sega Saturn item, but they also made a port to the Sega Genesis of Virtua Fighter.
Oh
A
god.
really shitty port of Virtua Fighter on the Sega Genesis.
That's the reason why I said that I thought it was for the Sega Saturn.
No.
Because if it was ported to the Sega Genesis, I know there's some cutback.
Well, yeah, obviously it didn't have that. It didn't have the 3D sprites or anything like that. But I mean, like my point being is this: Sega basically shot themselves in the foot. Sega lucked up into a successful fourth gen console, and then they basically they put Bernie Stoller in charge of the Sega Saturn, and he sabotaged that shit to death. Like not bringing over games that would have made it a better, a more complete library of, and when they did bring over Japanese games, they were only partially translated. Just a series of just bad management decisions, and that's what.
And that's before the line Saturn is not our future.
Yeah. That was before. What incentive did you have to buy a Sega Saturn when literally all the really good games were left in Japan, and when we did get games brought over, they were half translated. Like Sega, like Shining Force 3, only 2/3 of that game were brought over to America. There's an entire third scenario that ties everything together and has the real ending missing from the game.
Ooh boy.
So Sega, I don't think could, like, Sega was just a poorly run. It's still a poorly run company. It's poorly run. But I mean, if some billionaire person were to buy Sega and give them the money to restart, to like make a console, call it like the Dreamcast 2.0, I'd be cool with that. The Sega Dreamcast 2.
I'd be worried about that considering Sega's reputation.
Well, didn't you just hear me say if someone bought it, which meant that new management is brought in, new people are in control of the IPs. There's someone with vision in front of it. So those IPs, those studios under Sega have new vision, because the problem with Sega is the leadership. The people in charge are the problem. They have the talent.
Yeah.
It's just the people in charge don't know how to utilize it well.
Yeah, I get you. I was just trying to be sure because if the management didn't change, then I don't see that ever happening.
Yeah, well, like I said, if the management changed and these people got fired or bought off, whatever, and someone new came in, I think Sega's the only one who has the IPs. Because imagine if Sega released, Sega did that, and like in 5 years after they were bought out, they said, we're coming out with a new console. It's called the Dreamcast 2, and it has online gameplay, a version of the VMU, but it's a cloud-based memory card that you can look at with your phone, and it's actually on the console. Um, you also have exclusives, like you can only play Sonic the Hedgehog on this console. You can only play Sega sports games on this console. You can only play Yakuza on this console. I think Sega, just with all the games that they have, like if they recreated, because 2K used to be a Sega brand, and then they sold it off because they were afraid that EA wouldn't support their console. EA didn't support their console anyway, and they lost support. Yeah, Sega shot themselves in the ass. That's the problem. But I mean, if they reconstitute and actually did get those sports licenses, and someone, because the thing is that you're talking billions of dollars you'd have to put into this. Um, you'd have to put into this. It's not. It wouldn't happen. It's unrealistic. But the only way it could happen is if someone, like if a multi-billion-dollar billionaire people. I'm talking someone who is worth like $500 billion, and they said, okay, I'm going to take 50 to $100 billion and put it towards building this up into a brand. That's the only way this could happen. That's the only person I could see that could make a viable console in today's market. I don't see anyone else really being able to do it. But that being said, I guess we can move on to. Do you have anything else to add before we move on to the next topic?
Here's the hoping that we can see something that may shake up the markets, but until then, we're just gonna have to wait.
All right, so that leads to the next topic, which is the merits of developers leaving AAA publishers / development studios to create games that people want to play. We're seeing a lot of this. We're seeing a lot of people saying, "Fuck this shit. I'm tired of being forced to make bullshit that no one wants. I'm gonna leave this shit and go make something I really want to make." We're seeing a lot of this. This has been happening a lot in gaming, and I mean, I like it because we're finally getting games that people want and not just some bullshit. So with that being said,
Go on.
what are some games that aren't being made that you would like to see get made um, by some of these new indie developers that are cropping up?
I think the only the only game type that I think hasn't been given a big resurgence would be the side scrolling shooter, but I might be wrong there.
Could you repeat that?
I said that the only game type that I think hasn't gotten a big revival in a sense would be the side scrolling shooter, but that might be me missing something.
No, that could be brought back. I'd like to see that.
I mean, the games like Type R. That's what I was thinking.
I mean, R-Type.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a side scrolling. That's not a side scrolling shooter. That's a horizontal. That's a horizontal scrolling shooter, which is different. Like when you say side scrolling shooter, you mean something like Contra, or blazing lasers, or Sunset Riders, shit like that.
In a sense, yeah. It's just that if anything, I was thinking about both those types, really.
Well, I mean, we're seeing a lot of the horizontal scrolling like space shooters where you're flying around blowing shit the fuck up. It's just they're on Steam. They're not on consoles, unfortunately. With the pixel art style run and gun side scrolling shooters, I agree with you. I think we don't see as many of those as we used to. Um, and the ones that do come out lean too hard on difficulty and unfair difficulty versus playability.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, the only other game type, and this is probably the weird part about me thinking about this, is something like the Super Scope series, where you can actually play games first person and well try to do certain things like puzzles or the like. But that's probably already saturated to death.
Yeah, I got to disagree with you on that. We don't need any more light scope games unless the people are going to really build it properly. Like
Yeah,
really going to make a light scope game that works. I don't want to.
yeah. As I said, I think those are the only games that haven't been explored back into life. So your mileage may vary on how well you want to see those back. And with that in mind, I would say that I would want the side-scrolling shooters and the R types to come back first, first, or at least come up first before I would see the games like the light scope games.
Well, they did R Type Final 2, and I bought it on Steam. And it's okay. I mean, the problem is that it uses an art style that's like R Type Delta on the PlayStation, and I hate that art.
Hmm.
I hate that art style. I like the R Type art style that's uh, more pixel and cell shaded. Like the original R Type or Art Super R Type or R Type 3 with the
Hmm.
lightnings or R Type Leo. I don't like that polygonal 3D art style. I never liked that with R Type. So that's a personal pet peeve of mine. But there, I mean, you are getting new R Type games. It's just not like a new R Type game. It's just not what it used to be. Plus, the company that makes R Type, they don't. All they do is license out their shit. They don't even make new. They don't even make new R Type games. Sadly.
The sad part, I know how true that is.
So anyway, um, so you went. I guess I'll go. I want. I mean, we're already getting what I really wanted, which is more 2D cell shaded beat 'em ups. 2.5D side scrolling beat 'em ups. We're getting it with Streets of Rage 4. We're getting it with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4. Or sorry, Shredder's Revenge. Um, and which means hopefully we might also get another installment of Double Dragon and Final Fight, and I'd be totally okay with that because I love those games.
Especially
Um,
Double Dragon.
yeah, I mean, the thing I like about Double Dragon is that Double Dragon was so very different from those other beat 'em ups. Like Final Fight rewards you for going in and just beating the shit out of people. Double Dragon is a lot more methodical. Like you can't just run up to someone to a group of enemies and just beat the shit out of them. You have to actually think about, okay, I have to be more tactical in how I'm playing this. And I'm okay with that. Like I like fighting games that you have to be a bit more technical in playing
Yeah,
than just run
like
up and
put
punch someone in the
like
face.
grouping up your foes to be sure you're able to get through them all.
No, that's a Final Fight thing. In Double Dragon, you have to be like, okay, there's three of these guys. One of them is a big character. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to essentially pick up this weapon and beat the shit out of these two smaller characters, so then I can focus on the big guy. Or I'm going to have to like knock this guy out so that he loses his weapon, so then I can kick him off of the edge of the screen into a pit, so it's an instant kill for him. Like it's a lot more tactical and real. Like I hate to say this, real lifey, because in a real fight you don't want to get into a fisticuffs fight in a fight because you hurt your hands. It's much better to pick up a weapon and beat the shit out of somebody. Um, so Double
Do they
Dragon.
actually? I was going to ask, did they actually reward you for that kind of stunt?
Yeah, because if you play like the original Double Dragon, yeah, you can go up to people and elbow smash them and kick them and
Um,
punch them.
I
But
was the last Double Dragon I remember playing fully, in a sense, is the NES one.
yeah. Well, in the NES Double Dragon, yeah, going up playing the game like a typical beat 'em up where you go up to characters and you just punch and kick them, you're gonna get your ass kicked. You're gonna get swarmed. People are gonna hit you from behind. You're gonna get swarmed with weapons. You have to be much more tactical in what you're doing. And almost every Double Dragon game has been like that since. You play
Yeah,
Super Double Dragon for the NES, or also known as Return of Double Dragon. That game is like if you go in there playing like if you go into Double Dragon playing like okay, if you go into Streets of Rage and play it like you're playing Final Fight, you can get pretty far. If
I
you
was gonna say that I usually try to group my foes up so I can actually start trying to wallop them together to at
yeah,
least be
yeah.
sure I'm not still swamped by them.
Yeah, the same tactics apply to both games because they share a lot of the same DNA. Double Dragon is not like that. Like if you try to do that in Double Dragon, you're going to get your ass kicked because it's not that's not the it's more methodical. It's much more methodical. It's more tactical. It's more methodical. So like you actually have to be aware of okay, these enemies do this. This character has a weapon, so I'm gonna let him throw his weapon. I'm gonna dodge it, and then I'm gonna go in there and do this and throw him into this guy. Like it's a lot more tactical, and I like that. I like that you have a fighting game where you actually have to use more tactical thinking versus just button mashing. Not that I have anything against straight up button mashing, but it gets to be a little bit too much sometimes. Anyway, that's just my opinion. I want to see more beat 'em ups. We're getting tons of RPGs. We're getting tons of dungeon crawler RPGs. We're getting tons of traditional JRPGs. Like if you're an RPG nut like me, that itch is being scratched. But there's other genres that we aren't seeing done well because developers have to keep on doubling down on AAA games and microtransactions, expansion passes and season passes and cutting shit that should be in the base game so to add it later as a microtransaction, and I don't like it. So fuck that shit. Let's move on to the fun topic of the cast, which is it has been recently announced that that a Bioshock movie is in the works over at Netflix. What are your thoughts on that?
What was that? I was trying to hear you.
There's recently news has been announced that Bioshock, which is a game made
Uh-huh.
by 2K and Ken Levine, um, it was basically the game in terms of structure feels very much like a Metroid Prime. In terms of it being kind of a first person shooter, but there's an adventure feel and atmospheric storytelling, that type of thing. Um, and basically, it's the movie rights have been okayed over at Netflix, so they're going to make a movie based on Bioshock. How do you feel about that? What are your thoughts on that?
I honestly feel a little bit interested and a little bit worried because Bioshock has quite a lot to work with. I'm just not sure of how much they're gonna cover, or if they're gonna do the Iran Iran part.
Well, I mean, the first Bioshock. I mean, the first Bioshock is very much like an anti-Ayn Randian philosophy because the whole point is that Andrew Ryan, who's the founder of Rapture, is like we're going to create this Ayn Randian uh,
Utopian.
utopia that falls apart because no one gives a fuck about anything but themselves. That's the whole point. Is like you can't have a society, a libertarian, ultra libertarian society where no one gives a fuck about where everyone gives a fuck about only themselves and no one else. Like the reason Rapture fell apart is because everyone was ultra libertarian and no one gave a fuck. The only people who find redemption in Bioshock, the only way you can find redemption in Bioshock as the main character of the game is the one action that you have a choice in, which is if you choose to be altruistic and help these mutated little girls or kill them for your own personal gain. If you kill them, you get the shitty ending. If you do something altruistic, you actually get the best ending in the game. It's pretty. Like, Bioshock is one big fuck you to Ayn Randian philosophy. It's actually pretty amazing. It's pretty damn good. So if they did do that, it would actually be really good. Believe it or not. But, that's my own personal opinion. What do you think about that?
I'm honestly curious, and actually would want to at least see how they do it. Though, get ready for some interesting turns, if I remember the story right.
Well, yeah. Basically, the general premise of the story is that Jack Ryan is he's Andrew Ryan was going with this showgirl in Rapture, and she got pregnant. He didn't want kids, so he told her to abort it. Um, and instead of aborting it, they induced an early labor and then took this like premature child and conditioned it to grow to age prematurely and
Go to some weird stuff.
well, they conditioned to age prematurely and become a put subconscious suggestions into his consciousness so that he do shit. Um, like the opening of Bioshock begins with your character on a plane, and the plane just like crashes in the sea. What you don't know is that your character was given a letter that told him that to return to Rapture by any means necessary. So your character becomes a suicide bomber and plants a bomb in his luggage that makes the plane that explodes while he's on the plane, which causes it to crash into the sea. Like his trigger phrase in Bioshock is "Would you kindly?"
Would you kindly?
Would you kindly? Yeah.
Kindly.
So everything he does in the game, except for the one thing that you do have choice about, which is you're asked by one of the doctors who helped create the plasmids. She's like, if you possibly could, if you could you please help? Could you help the little sisters? And it's the one thing you have a choice on. Like, you can choose to kill the little sisters, or you can choose to save them. If you save the little sisters, you get the best ending in the game. If you're a selfish libertarian prick, you get the shitty ending in the game. So the game is one big fuck you to Ayn Randian libertarian philosophy.
Yeah. Though, as I said, it'll be interesting to see which way they roll with that.
Well, I mean, if they handle it well, it could be awesome. If they handle it poorly, it could be a steaming pile of dog doo doo. So it just
kind of like going for the atom, or going with saving the girls.
Yeah, or
God, that was so on the nose.
Like every other fucking movie adaptation from Netflix, it probably will suck because every video game adaptation from Netflix has been shit. Like their Resident Evil adaptation has been dog shit.
I thought you were aiming at the Castlevania.
No, the Castlevania one, the first season was pretty good. The second season was not quite as good as the first season. Oh, no. The first season was kind of shit. The second season was great. The third season was trash. So overall, it was like a C. But the second season was really good. Like the problem with Netflix adaptations is you just never know what you're gonna get. Like they don't have a formula that works, so it's always like a lot of experimentation. It's like they're still trying to work out their pizza formula. Anyway, that's our thoughts on the Bioshock movie over Netflix. Do you have anything else you want to mention before we wrap things up?
Actually, a question.
Go ahead.
What game do you think would make a good series to try to get to be shown off?
Movie or like series?
I mean, which games would you want to be a series like on Netflix or Hulu?
Um,
I mean, they're doing Cuphead, so they're doing
yeah,
something.
but Cuphead wasn't that good. Um, like,
Oh boy.
well, actually, no, I take that back. Some of the episodes of Cuphead are really good. Some of them are just kind of aimless. Like the people are so enamored in the technology and the art style that they forgot that they had to have a cartoon that actually had to have like
Yeah.
writing in it. It's
I was.
kind of like how it's kind of like Google with Stadia
Uh huh.
got so caught up in the technology behind Stadia, which is still pretty amazing, that they forgot that they had to have other shit around that. It's not just the technology. Same principle. It's the same. It's the
Yeah.
same
Thank
principle.
you. Thank you for saving me time of watch and trying to check it out.
No, no. Some of the episodes are really good, but some of the episodes, it's like okay. I'm sure this might be nostalgia because I remember we grew up with like Tiny Toon Adventures and Animaniacs, and I'm sure not all those episodes were great. But
Yeah, I was going to say that. If anything, it's a mixed bag, right?
I mean, like we probably remember it all being great, even though in reality not all of them were great. We probably remember the highlights. But I mean, Netflix is only like 8 episodes, 10 episodes, whereas Animaniacs has 52 episodes. So if you have like I think in the first season has like 52 episodes. So if you have 52 episodes in the first or second season, right, and 35 of them are great, like you're gonna forgive the 1 or 2 episodes between the 35, 36 that are not great. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can get you on that. I'm just trying to be careful about it because I'm actually trying to think of what of all the episodes in a bit of a piece there.
I mean, if you already have Netflix, it's a moot point. See, if you already have
Yeah,
Netflix, then you can watch it and there's no problem. Um,
yeah, and I mean, I'm trying not to cheat with going to Netflix.
I mean, it's your opinion. But anyway, that's my own personal thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
uh,
Back to the question.
yeah,
Which game would we want to see get a series?
me, I would like to see a cartoon that I want to see get a cartoon series or a TV show, live action or or animated.
Your dice roll.
Okay. I would. Okay, this is going to be the fanboy in me because I love this game. I would like to see. This will never happen because Nintendo just doesn't like to see their franchises be turned into adult, but or at least more adult, more mature. I would like to see a Super Smash Brothers. Um,
Animation or
not
movie?
I would like to see a TV show, but I would like it to I would like it to be treated like these are toys. These are not the Smash Brothers. This is not Mario from the games. This is Mario from like these are toy action figures beating the shit out of each other. And have it so that like Mario has like a deep Italian voice. He's not like ah. It's like yeah, hold him down, Luigi. I'm gonna punch him in the stomach. Um, and you could have all these characters exist in Smash City, which is like where all these battles go through, and you could have all this wacky, zany, insane shit going on, culminating with them fighting to save their world from being like it would be a riff off of the Never-Ending Story, where like the world of Fantasia is being absorbed by the nothing, except you'd call it something else, and it would basically be Taboo or Master Generator, whatever the fuck it is in the later games. Um, and so basically, like they're having to put aside their differences because some of these characters have beef with each other. Like Ganon and Link have beef with each other. Um, like in order they'd have to put aside their differences in order to save their world from being absolutely decimated. But between those episodes, you'd have like between the overarching story, you'd have like them going to different parts of Smash City, beating the shit out of each other. So it'd just be a lot of animation of these figurines beating the shit out of each other. That'd be cool.
Oh boy, that honestly would be fun. We're not going to get that, but it'd be fun.
Yeah, we're not gonna get it. I would love to do it, but we're not gonna get it because
And for me, I got two, but I'm guessing that neither is going to happen in a sense.
go ahead.
Shantae, half genie hero.
I'd be cool with that.
I mean, I would at least want a movie of her doing her thing, trying to get rid of risky boots or try to save the world.
I'll be honest
The
with
other
you. No, go ahead.
the other one, I'm actually being a little careful with this because I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but I'm honestly would be curious of seeing another Mario animation.
I'd be cool with that. I know Nintendo doesn't
So
want to do it, but I'd be cool with it. Actually, I
yeah,
would like for Way Forward. There was a game Way Forward did back in the day between Shantae and like when they had the Shantae Resurgence on the DS, where they made a game on the Game Boy Advance called what was the name of that game? Here, let me look it up because I don't want to get it right. Way Forward GBA game. And it was like a riff between it was let's see, what was it called? Shit. Um Damn. If I couldn't find this shit. It wasn't Contra 4. Sigma Star Saga. That's what it's called. It's called Sigma Star Saga. And it was like an RPG and a shooter, and it was really good. Like it was astonishingly good, and it had that typical like these female characters are kind of sexy in an anime way art style, but it also was a legitimately good game, and I really enjoyed that game, and I wish that that Way Forward would make that shit into a cartoon because the art style already lends itself to that. They'll probably never do it, but it'd be cool. You have any thoughts about that?
hmm. I could honestly fully agree with you on that.
Okay. Anyway, that's the end of the cast. Anything you want to pimp out before we wrap things up, Jewel?
Hmm. Not that I know of on the spot, but oh yeah, I almost forgot. Since if anything, it's probably coming up soon. If anybody's getting Triangle Strategy, it's coming up next week, so be ready. Other
Yeah,
than that, I think we could end it.
yeah. I'm gonna wait until that comes on PC. I'm gonna
Hmm.
wait. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait because that game looks like I'm gonna need a trainer to play it, and I'm not gonna play. I'm not gonna play it on the Switch, where probably gonna get my ass kicked.
If you want your rear end kicked that badly, go to the PlayStation 1. At least with that Final Fantasy, at least with Final Fantasy Tactics, at least you get a fair and hard rear kicking.
Not really, because with on you can use Game Shark on the PlayStation One. They don't even make Game Shark anymore. You can't even use Game Shark on the Switch. I mean, you could probably hack it, but you'd void your system. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna wait till it hits PC, and then I'll probably hack the shit out of it, and that's what I'll play. Anyway, yeah, I mean, you know, I'll probably wind up getting it when it comes to PC because I'll probably be able to get it cheaper on PC anyway.
Not surprised.
Well, I mean, I said this earlier. Why would I want to pay $60 when I could pay less and get the same game? Anyway, that's oh, here's something else big that's coming out next week. The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves, is coming out next week, where you get to see Robert Pattinson play a really interesting version of Batman that's way better, in my opinion, than Ben Affleck's version of Batman. This is just from, I heard people who've seen early screeners of it. They say it's really good. I trust these people who said it was really good. So that's my opinion. It's coming out next week. I don't know the exact date. I'm going to watch it. I might review it on the channel. That's in this podcast. Rate, comment, share, subscribe. You can reach me via email, Gmail, Twitter, Twitch. All that stuff is in the description section, so you can click on that and get that information.
Otherwise, you join us next week at 7:30 every every Wednesday and Saturday.
That's right. And also, always remember that he's not here, so he can't do it. So I guess I'll say it now. Kenoshi has his podcast coming. And his podcast is always worth watching. It's every Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's this podcast. Rate, comment, share, subscribe, and